Okay, so I want this to be, I'm pretty sure I'm set here. I want this to be a basic walkthrough, but I don't want to deep dive anything. So let's go through this real quick. I'm in a good spot with this setup. So we're starting with the OB1 optical compressor. Fairly I got a bad cable in there somewhere. I don't know if you could hear that noise just a moment ago. Not really using a boost right now, but I do have it set up. Let's see, let's turn some stuff off here. So what you're hearing here, both pickups. Okay, so let's work our way through the signal chain. So that's the OB1. I'm really not using a ton of compression on it, just enough to give it a little bump. And don't worry, I'll do a little jam after I walk through this. I'm leaving the mic live for the moment, okay? I'm going to skip the tube screamer and the super badass Variac fuzz. We're going to go to the Fairfax, so we're leaving the compression on. Fairfax. Gives it just a little bit of a push. Really gives it some life. Down to the floor, my volume pedal, which is a Morley little alligator. To the Mustang, back up to the Mustang GT. Give a little more presence, a little more push again. I'm going to mute the mic here and just run through it with the mic muted. Okay, so for the amps, you're hearing the AC15 through the Fryette PowerLoad IR, and I'm using both outputs on it, or two of the outputs on it. One of which has the analog cab sim going into channel 1 on my SSL. Another one is the IR going to channel 2 on the SSL. And I'm hard panning them left and right. In fact, let me mute the other amp for the moment. And I'm making the analog cab sim out of phase, which sounds like this. As you can hear, I've got some of the spring reverb as well as some of the trem, because when I blend it with the other amp, it sits real nice. That's just how it changes. I'm going to flip the phase just so you can hear what it does a little more clearly. Kind of does a little bit of that JC 120 thing, which I'm a big fan of, especially when I'm blending it with another amp. Okay, so let's go over to the other amp. So the other amp I have been experimenting with like Rycooder kind of tones. And I was using a Filmo sound capture, which I actually still like a lot. I'll probably still use it at some point. But right now, today I did a Showman amp. It gives a little more of that boominess. All right, so let's do both amps together. Kind of a nice dirty pushed sound. I personally like that phase cancellation you get. Gives you kind of a certain kind of depth. It's even better in the room, but in this particular setting, I think it works as well. Okay, so that's just the 2 amps. So let's backtrack to the Tube Screamer into the Super Badass Variac Fuzz. Now, this is just an Eric Johnson thing. I decided I wanted to try the new Tube Screamer to see if I could get a dirty push. And it worked really great. However, the one I ordered was a little wonky. So I figured, you know what, I might as well give the fancy Tube Screamers a shot. And I think I mentioned this before, but it's a pretty good time to shop for Tube Screamers. You can get some of these fancy ones for a fairly decent price. This is the Analog Man REJ Project 1. And I never thought I'd say this, but I really love it. So this is both amps. Just add some nice dirt in there, but the even better thing, and I'm going to mute the mic here and mess with it a little bit, is you can really use the volume and tone to dial in whatever level of ugly you want. really nice big sounds out of it. And just with messing with your volume and tone, you can get all the range you want. So I've suddenly found myself saying I like a tube screamer. And I really, really do love this tube screamer. Fantastic sounding thing. That must be interference from my Bluetooth or something. That's going to make my head explode. But okay, so the little trick here is this little, and I don't know if Eric Johnson borrowed it or discovered it himself, but he puts his tube screamer in front of his fuzz. So the Super Variac fuzz is a silicon fuzz. And you have a lot of control with it. You can control the voltage. That's why they call it the Variac fuzz. Obviously, output and gain. And then you have a tone control, which with a tube screamer for me is kind of essential. But works so good. So this is with the tube screamer on. Actually, I'm going to mute the mic and just go through some sounds. I mean, you get all the meat you want. You can mellow it out as easily as possible. Now, so I just love it. It really gets. If I can't find the right sound there, it's definitely my fault. Okay, so that's compression, gain, push, I guess I'll call it. Because it isn't really giving it dirt, it's just pushing. Both amps. Now we'll just talk about the wet side. So coming out of the Nano Cortex, we're going to come down to, geez, I don't remember what the hell I did here. We're going to come down to the Trio Plus. Not much to say about that other than when you use both outputs of it, one of the outputs takes just the bass and drums out, so that's going to channel 3 in my SSL, and the other side just sends the guitar. So then the guitar comes down to the platform. Now I'm not using a platform in stereo, which is what I was originally going to try and run this platform in my Neve on the back end, but I decided to keep the 6, so which is fine, because even though this is a digital compressor, it actually sounds really good, and it does the sustain thing really well, in addition to having the gain side over here, so I can kind of shape the tone a little more at this point in the signal chain. So this is without. Here's with. Only about 1 to 2 dB of reduction. It's just bringing the signal back alive at that point, because the signal's turned digital on this side of the chain at this point. So what you're hearing there is not so much that it's taking the stereo image away, it's just bringing the signal up. So the balance between the 2 amps changes when I do that. Okay, so next, going out of the platform into the Zoya. The Zoya, I have my Astral Tempo patch, which as of right now, if you are a Zoya owner, I have not uploaded the patch storage, but it's getting close, because I have been playing this for few weeks now, and I haven't changed it a single bit, so I'm pretty close to declaring it done in my head, which means I'll be able to upload it. But so what I've got on the Zoya here is I've got 3 sound-on-sound loops going into 3 different loopers that are automatically recording. I've got VCAs and LFOs to control all this stuff. Tap tempo tied to the left switch. So 1, 2, 3. This controls the volume of the sound-on-sound loop. This controls the volume of the loopers themselves. If I need to do if I need to mix it out, depending on what I'm doing, and then this is a master volume for the output of everything in case it's dominating and I'm trying to do something in the trio. But this is very simple. The third looper is 16 second, the other 2 are 8 second. And what I usually do, well, I mean, I do a lot of things with it, but right now let's just do an A thing. So I can tap tempo that. So it'll run through the sequencers really quickly, or I usually tap it slower though, so it doesn't distract. All right, so let's just turn that off for the moment. We'll leave the loop in there because I'll bring it back. So next I've got the mood, okay? All right, so the mood on the left side, I'm actually using as a slapback. So what I did was I brought it back. Hear the noise there? I go one quantized step above the noise. And it gives me a beautiful slapback. By the way, notice I have 0 stereo effects going so far. but the sound is really big in 3D. So what I usually do, and we'll do it right now, is I'll leave everything at noon to start. I won't touch the left side. I'm talking about the right side now. Start with those at noon. I will get my loop going in the Zoya, which we'll pull up here right now. I'll let the mood listen to it for a moment. Then I'll activate the mood. Okay, so this is what I've got in the mood. So the first thing I do is I'll dip it back to that position I told you where I get the nice slap back. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'm in tape mode, by the way. I'll take the micro loop and I'll turn it up till it sits nice in the mix. Right there seems nice. I'll get the length right. Okay, let's add in the Zoya. So there we go, ambient spacey goodness. And of course I could just play over that as it is. So very easy to just, and notice there's still no reverb or delay, which is great. Kind of the goal for me is to see how much you can make you hear my guitar without losing that ability to just kind of sit in a space that maybe doesn't exist otherwise. Okay, so let's get rid of that for the moment. Just turn that off. All right, now, Volante. Now, what I found with the Volante is you don't really need a reverb after it. Otherwise, you kind of lose all of its character. I have the Night Sky. I'll probably use the Night Sky again. The Night Sky can almost be used like a modulation device, though, more than reverb. And I'll probably get into that at some point. But right now, I'm really loving the Volante as kind of my last pedal in the signal chain. In this case on the wet side. So let's activate that, and that's really the only stereo effect I have right now. What I found is you can use the wear knob to really soften the transients on the repeats. So it's not, I mean, I love, if you spend any time watching my channel, I really love the whole rhythmic delay thing. But in this case, I just need a couple reflections. So what I'm finding with the wear is you can turn that wear up, and then you can get a much higher level on the delay, so you really get that that modulated feel without it getting in the way, which is what I don't like when delays do that. And I think that's what a lot of people look for with analog delays, is that ability for it to give you all that nice lush thing going on without the repeats getting in the way. So you can do that fairly easily with the Volante. Now I've got it on the drum setting at half speed to really accentuate that. I'm not cutting any low because I've got the 2 amp setup going on. I've got the spacing somewhere between golden and silver ratio. Got a little spring reverb dialed in, so there's a real spring on the AC-15 side, but on the Showman side, I've got a little added in at the end as well. So here we are in instant space land. So, and then of course I go out to channel 4 in the SSL6, out of the SSL6 into the Neve 88M. The only effects I'm using on the back end right now are a convolution reverb, the soft tube tape, and then I've got the limiter on there just to help keep the levels right for making my little YouTube videos, which I'm doing here. But so that's my signal chain. There's a whole lot of years and years and years have kind of led me to some of these decisions in this particular case, but without having any giant reverb, with only having one stereo effect, and just some, tone shaping to make my tone. I'm not trying to sound like anybody else, but I am letting other people inspire the sounds I'm using here. Ry Cooder, David Gilmour, Eric Johnson, stuff like that. But and then of course my own experience of doing this over the years. So I'm going to keep this loop, and we'll do something in the trio and do a little jam just to kind of explore some of these sounds. So hopefully you got something from this. Let's hope I get a good jam. Okay, so there it is. I suppose one last note is these last couple changes I made really were motivated by this guitar. This guitar I've had, the body at least I've had for a long time, but I put a Mojo Tone harness in here, as well as some Gemini Tone Ranger pickups, which are wide range humbuckers in a regular humbucker size pickup. A Warmoth body, Warmoth neck, and I talked about this in a little more depth, but these Tone Rangers with this Mojo Tone harness on this mahogany body, maple neck guitar, is something like I try and do one of each tone. I don't have a lot of guitars. In fact, I don't think I have any guitars that sound like each other. And this is definitely a sound I didn't have prior to this, and I'm in love with it. So this is the kind of sound I might have done amplified rather than in this, home setting. So I'm curious as to whether it sounds harsh. I've been working a little more on a mix now that I have the trio, so my sound is slowly drifting back to be more similar to the way I used to play when I used to play live, which is pretty exciting to me because now I'm playing with a pick again. I might actually sound like I know what I'm doing at some point here, but feels good to play some of this stuff, play with some of these tones that I haven't in a long time, in the mixed tones, I guess is what I'm saying, rather than just this total, off on a tangent, spacey stuff. Because I think everything still comes across, but with much more tone and guitar involved rather than much more effects being present. Hopefully the effects are just supporting what I'm playing rather than creating something that wouldn't be there if I was just playing without them. Because I think what I just played, short of the loops and the volume pedal, wouldn't sound much different if I was playing live in a room. And that's kind of what I'm going for. So I don't know. Let's see what it sounds like. But that's my 2026 setup. Possible changes. I've got an analog delay coming. So instead of doing the slapback right here with the mood, I'm going to try my favorite analog delay of all time. I finally found one at a price I was willing to pay. So that one you might see show up on here as an experiment. And I might put that slapback on the front end. I tried it with my FX90. That one's just too old and too wonky to do what I want without distracting me. So hopefully this one I have coming will do that slapback thing without distracting me, which will give me the opportunity to use the left side of the mood in different ways. I go back and forth on compression. I really like the Vertex Nile in front of the Tube Screamer. I think Vertex, he voices things a little, what is that? Something's doing weird things there. Hopefully it's not the amp, but I think that Vertex, because of the way his ear is, matches these two really well. So I might switch out the OB1. You might see that the Nile show up from time to time. The platform may or may not stay. I go back and forth on compression at this point in the signal chain, but right now it's giving me the output I want, and it's feeding the Zoya and the Mood a good solid signal, just a little bit of reduction there, without losing all of that kind of nice 3D-ness I worked so hard to make up here. So let's see what it sounds like. But there you go, my Pedalboard 2026.